Devitt is live in Fort Pierce this morning. Matt, what are the conditions out there like right now?
You know, overall, at least at the moment, pretty minimal. So been driving around and we've had a few small to medium-sized limbs that are already covering parts of the road here in Fort Pierce as the major hurricane and the Category 3, believe it or not, just 110 miles behind me. Now, as you know, we're not dealing with a storm that we had a few days ago. At one point peaked at 185. And what has happened is, as it has been slowing down, gradually it's been lowering its max winds. The problem is it's becoming bigger, the wind field expanding. And unfortunately for Grand Bahama, it has not moved. It has been stationary over the past several hours, and that means that their conditions continue to deteriorate and deteriorate, but eventually this system will get the kick and the nudge that it needs to make that turn towards the west-northwest and eventually towards the north. And depending on that proximity to the Florida coastline, that means everything for what we're going to see. But the state of Florida for right now is just outside of the forecast cone, but they still need to prep just in case. Now, already I would say here in Fort Pierce, we've had some wind gusts to around 30 to 40, occasionally over tropical storm force gusts. But still, we have that system over 100 miles away, and I do expect greater wind speeds as we go throughout the morning. And for the very latest on Dorian, I want to bring in meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. Brittany?
Yeah. Well, right now, Florida is completely outside of the cone for Hurricane Dorian.
And it seems like we've been waiting really for days. Hurricane Dorian has not made the turn north just yet, and many Florida communities are still under a hurricane watch this morning. Weather Authority meteorologist Matt Devitt is live in Fort Pierce, and you can actually see and hear the wind where he's at. Matt, kind of give us some context there of what it feels like.
Well, the conditions right now, because we're still over 100 miles away from this slow-moving, if not moving storm, are very typical of what you would see with the lower-end tropical storm, at least because of our proximity away. We've had some wind gusts, 30 to 40 miles an hour here in Fort Pierce on our way in, a ghost town. Everybody taking this seriously, not taking any chances considering we're under a hurricane warning. But actually, because the winds have not gone above about 40 and 50, at least sustained here, we still have power. Now, that's always subject to change, but as Dorian eventually gets that kick that it needs and stops continuing to slant Grand Bahama, it's going to be working its way towards the northwest and towards the north and likely continuing to weaken. And you guys have probably noticed that at home. At one point, it maxed out at 185 miles an hour, but when it literally parked itself right on top of the northern Bahamas, it was churning up a lot of cooler water, and it absorbed that as well. So ironically, because of its slow speed, it hurt itself. But this system eventually is going to be working its way towards the north, and at that point, I do expect the wind field to grow, and absolutely, I'm expecting tropical storm force wind gusts along the Florida East Coast, and even a few spots could, in fact, even see hurricane force gusts. But it all depends on that proximity of Dorian in reference to the Florida East Coast, which, according to the National Hurricane Center, they have adjusted the cone to the east. And again, doesn't change the storyline for us here in Southwest Florida. This is not going to be our storm. We dodge a bullet, and over the next few hours, we are expecting very stubborn Dorian to take that turn towards the north. But again, no question, it is windy out here. We have seen wind gusts, I would say, pretty consistent around 30 to 40, occasionally a gust over 50, and that's along the immediate coastline. And as we kind of pan out, you can see the wind whipping around, some of the sand coming right off of the Atlantic. You can probably even see that in the light. And I do expect even higher wind as we hit about sunrise and after that point as we get to our closest proximity to Dorian as it eventually makes that turn towards the north. So that's what we have right here in Fort Pierce. And Brittany Van Voorhees has got you covered there in the Wink Weather Center. She's going to have the very latest on the forecast as well. Brittany?
Thanks so much. The new track out minutes ago shows Dorian is still a Category 3, but we are still waiting on the turn north. Wink News is the weather authority with crews stationed up and down the East Coast. We begin first with meteorologist Matt Devitt live in Fort Pierce.
Well, you know, right now it is windy outside, but literally offshore over 100 miles to my east, that is where we have Dorian, which thankfully is not the storm that it once was. The problem is that came with a price. It slammed the northern Bahamas, and at one point, max winds 185, and it just parked itself. The conditions there have been absolutely terrible. Now, with that system essentially unraveling very slowly over the North Bahamas and lowering its max winds, that system is going to be weakening over the next several days. But still, it's a major hurricane. It is packing a punch, and because of at least my proximity to the storm, we have seen wind gusts as high as 30, 40, and at times even over 50 miles an hour, which would be equivalent of lower tropical storm force gusts. Now, what I've seen so far here in Fort Pierce, we've had a few small to medium-sized limbs in the street, kind of littering everywhere, but they still have power. So we haven't had strong enough wind to knock out the power. So some good news there. But boy, the Atlantic right now, I'm sure you can't see it in the distance, but it is kicking. It is nasty. The sand blasting horizontally, going in from left to right. And, you know, thankfully in Southwest Florida, we know the drill, we know the routine, and we've been kind of reiterating this. This system is going to remain far enough away so that we do not see a direct impact. But here in Fort Pierce, the winds will continue to increase as we go throughout the morning, as finally this system gets the kick that it needs. But right now, it's stalled out. And for the very latest on that, I want to toss it out to meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. Brittany?
And Weather Authority meteorologist Matt Devitt is live from Fort Pierce this morning as the National Hurricane Center is now calling for Dorian to move dangerously close to Florida. Matt.
And, you know, at least over the past 24 hours, we have seen at least some improvement in the overall thinking, even more of a shift to the east. And that has been reflected in their newest forecast cone. But by no means are we not going to see anything. As you could tell with this live shot here, we still are going to have the winds whipping already. 30 to 40 miles an hour, occasionally gusting to 50. Got the sand hitting me on the left, and also literally in between now and the previous live shot, this big guy right here just fell from a nearby palm tree. Look at this. Can you imagine this going through the air at about 40 and 50 miles an hour? So that's just some of the things that we're very mindful of at my location here along Fort Pierce. I've been observing some of the conditions in the Atlantic. The waves are certainly up, but there is a storm surge warning in effect. Right now, we do not have that. I am not seeing any storm surge or any water rise coming in from the Atlantic. But over the past 24 hours, Dorian very slowly, very gradually has been weakening. At one point, as we know, a monster, powerful Category 5. But ever since then, and ever since it stalled out, it has been weakening and weakening, and actually there are two reasons for that. First of which, the land interaction on Grand Bahama, and also because it's over the same water, it's been churning it up and causing it to cool down. So ironically, Dorian is hurting itself. So that helps us out. The problem is it stalled out right on top of Grand Bahama, and the video, the pictures have been absolutely devastating. Now, the plan has not changed. There's going to be a weakness in a dome of high pressure to our north, and that will guide Dorian towards the north, and it will be turning today. But right now, it's still stationary. And for the very latest on that
East Coast near Fort Pierce, and he is in it again.
Yeah, that's right, Jim. So right now, along the East Coast, Fort Pierce, which, you know, about 100 miles behind me, we have that major hurricane, like you said. Very stubborn, just will not move. And the conditions right now, you know, Fort Pierce is doing just fine. We have had some wind gusts, 30 to 50 miles per hour, but has not been sustained at that level. Now, every now and then, with those type of gusts, we have had some tree limbs down, and actually some as big as this. Now, for reference, and this guy is heavy, I'm about 6'3". This thing is well over 7 feet, and that's why they're saying get off the road, and you should not be venturing out with stuff like that all littered over the road. Now, we still have power, so that's a good situation right now. But conditions, some other things to highlight. We're under a storm surge warning. I am not at the moment seeing water rising and coming in from the Atlantic. But granted, Dorian has not moved. Now, eventually, it is expected to do so, like Jim was saying, later today and later down the road. Gradually, slowly, and eventually when it's parallel to my location, that is when likely I will see the maximum effect of Dorian. But still, because this has been trending a little bit more to the east, Generally some tropical storm force gusts. Can't rule out hurricane force, but I do believe Fort Pierce is going to be just fine, but it's a ghost town right now. Granted, it's a hurricane warning and 6 a.m., but everybody's taking this very seriously. They are not venturing out, and so far so good outside of some wind gusts to 30 to 50 live right now in Fort Pierce.
And we are looking good there.
Some progress. Only in Florida can you have a major hurricane offshore, literally 100 miles offshore, with the sun rising in between some of the feeder bands. Unbelievable. And also what's illuminated, some huge waves, and those waves have been increasing as Dorian, and I'm happy to hear at least some progress. We'll take any wind that we can get, has gone from stationary to 1 mile per hour. But, hey, it's progress. We'll take it. As far as Fort Pierce goes, honestly, not bad. We've had some wind gusts, 30 to 50 miles an hour. We've had the palm trees whipping here and right. And if you've been watching Wink all morning, just after 5 o'clock, had this big boy right here. For a reference, I'm about 6 foot. This guy well above my head. Now, the reason you're traveling out is that could easily fall on any of the roads because of this wind. So that is one of the things that we've been dealing with. And also, we've had tree limbs scattered all over the road. Now, as far as power outages, still do not have that. As far as storm surge goes, we don't have that as well. I will comment that the waves have been increasing, the water level going up a little bit, and that trend will likely continue as Dorian eventually makes that continued progress ever so slowly towards the northwest. But right now, Fort Pierce is doing just fine. But if that does start to change and conditions do deteriorate, I'll be the first to let you know.
All right. And now we're going to send it out to meteorologist Matt
Brittany,
Devin, who's out
actually,
in Fort
this
Pierce.
is probably, go figure, the strongest wind I've had so far this morning. Literally, you're looking at it right now. But despite that, take a look just to my right. Some are trying to see if they can find a little bit of luck. I guess some can argue that he could have picked a better time, but he's trying his luck this morning. The bands of wind right now, I would say we're probably approaching about 45 to 50 miles an hour. Now, nothing I don't think we can't take, but look below. That is what has been changing over the past several minutes. More wave action. The waves are getting bigger. Now, we do not have a surge at the moment, but I do expect this trend to continue. And when we go live at noon, you will see us approaching high tide. And that's when the wave action will increase, and we're going to have to watch that surge potential, because not only will Dorian be slowly moving northwest, but hey, here's to progress, but we also will be approaching high tide, and that wind is going to try to force that wave action more up the coast. As far as rainfall goes, literally I'm getting slammed by one of the outer bands. And Eric, if we could try to swing around, and you can see some of the palm trees whipping left and right now. Again, all morning we've been live. This is probably the strongest band I've had so far. Wind gusts 45 to 50 miles an hour. Fort Pierce still has power. The overall impact so far has been minimal, but if we do start to get reports in of any damage, I will be the first to let you know.
Thanks, Matt. And